Hello everybody, it's time once again for another still frame review, and this time I have a request for a movie by my worship pastor Jeremy. He wanted me to review the recently released on Amazon 2021 film Playing God. Apparently he knows the guy who wrote and directed this, Scott Brignac. At least I think that's who he said he knew. He knew somebody associated with the movie. The film Playing God follows a pair of twin brother and sister con artists, Rachel and Micah, played by Hannah Kasilka and Luke Benward respectively, as they run the streets of Houston bilking money from innocents. However, Micah runs into a huge $200,000 debt with a crime boss, and he has to get him his money fast. The brother and sister duo learn of a depressed millionaire played by Alan Tudyk, who is traveling around the world searching for God. They decide to pretend to be angels and get the millionaire to give them money in order to talk with God. However, they learn he's much smarter than they thought, and he's not going to just outright give them $200,000, but they did notice while they were at his house that he has a big old safe. So, having already committed to the bit, they find their old con artist friend, Frank, played by Michael McKean, who runs a roller rink, and they get him to agree to play God. So they continue with the charade, trying to introduce God to this millionaire in order to distract them so they can get the money before the crime boss's deadline runs out. This is a $1 million comedy premise right here. It's got clearly defined stakes and goals and a ticking time bomb. It's got deception throughout it, which is the comedy staple, and it's about God, crime, and huge sums of money. All things everyone can get easily interested in. And of course, someone pretending to be God and actually fooling someone into thinking so is just ridiculous. And that's what transforms the premise from just a high concept premise to a high concept comedy premise. This plot is set up perfectly to be a great comedy movie. Now, is it a great comedy movie? This is one of those mixed bag films. Well, let's get into it. This feels like this film wants to be more of a drama than it wants to be a comedy. Even though the premise is set up perfectly for the comedy genre, most of the writing is more like 2/3 drama, 1/3 comedy. Now, there is such a thing as dramedy, and this film does have some good drama that could serve as a skeleton for a great comedy film, but you still need just more jokes. And this film doesn't really have a whole lot of them. The first laugh I got wasn't even until around the 27-minute mark. The second act is pretty slow, and it's full of too many scenes away from the main plot, and they're all dramatic scenes. All the comedy comes from the main plot, so it just feels like a bunch of filler. Now, a slow second act and not enough jokes are my own biggest writing problems myself, so I'm not throwing any stones here. Now, there is a pretty good plot twist that comes in about 2/3 of the way through the movie that I wish had a little more build-up so it doesn't seem to come out of nowhere. But it's still a good plot twist because it actually changes the relationships of the characters and it changes all of their goals and motives. Even though in this specific movie that's where most of the drama comes from, twists like that, changes in the plot direction, is also where comedy comes from. And if they had used more changes like that in the second act, it wouldn't feel more slow and would have provided more opportunities for more jokes. But even with the slow second act, the climax does pick up speed and is stronger than the majority of the movie, so even at the end you have a more positive view of the story. Unfortunately, structure and ambiguous genre are not the only problems the writing suffers from. The dialogue is pretty uninspired, and it's mostly just cliches from other films. And don't get me wrong, while I say there's not enough comedy in this movie, there are still some pretty funny jokes. Although, considering the rest of the writing, I have a feeling a lot of the best lines were improvised. But on a positive note, the writer and director Scott Brignac is from right here in Houston, and he decided to use Houston as the location for this film. And man, my city looks good on film. Even though I don't live in the city, but it still looks good on film. And I get a kick out of seeing locations I already recognize. And as a general rule, this movie really does look nice. The cinematography is pleasing to look at, although it does lack some direction. The lighting and composition may fit the general mood of a scene, but there's nothing unique about it to take that to the next level from nice to creative. Same thing with the editing. It's stylized in some places, but others it's pretty lackluster and it lacks direction. Again, Again, same thing with the score. The music is fun to listen to, but it's also a little all over the place and lacks some direction. Now, as far as the acting goes, the B-list household names everyone is looking forward to in this movie is Alan Tudyk and Michael McKean, and I was a little disappointed with Alan Tudyk. You know, he's one of those actors that sort of pops up everywhere in the most random places, but you're never mad that he's there. And same thing for this one, but his performance wasn't entirely interesting either. It was very one note, and he was basically just mopey and depressed throughout the whole movie, although I'm not entirely sure he could have done anything else with what the writing gave him. However, Michael McKean seemed to be having fun with his role though, and either way, whether it's paycheck acting or an invested performance, it's always nice to see these two actors. I'd say the thing that's best about this movie is the message. The message is sort of about the problem of evil, why do bad things happen, and it sort of gives an answer, but I can't say what that answer is explicitly because, as good art should, and fitting to how grieving people don't like lectures, a message is never explicitly stated in this movie. Now, when I heard about this movie, I heard there was some little pantheism line in there, but the movie is not teaching pantheism or really teaching anything theologically specific. Those lines came from the con artist who was excommunicated from his Catholic school at age 15. Nothing in the film said about God is supposed to teach the audience anything about God. Rather, we the audience are left to think and make our own conclusions about God and the problem of evil based on how the characters play the story out through their actions. So overall, there's no one glaring issue offsetting the rest. This movie has a well-rounded set of both strengths and weaknesses in all areas, and that tells me that this Scott Brignac guy has a lot of potential. This is only his first feature film. To make a really great movie, he just needs more practice. So normally a movie like this I would give a D, but I'm invested in this one, so I'm gonna give it a C for Christ-like con artists. I like seeing my city on film. I'm interested in this filmmaker and where he'll go. And there's a lot of potential in this movie. So in 20 years, Scott Brignac, I want you to pull a Cecil B. DeMille and do a remake of your own work. And if you don't want to do it, can I take it? And this is just too good a premise to pass up. Those are my thoughts on the movie Playing God. It's available now on Amazon, so let me know what you thought of the movie. And also let me know, of course, of any suggestions of other movies or TV shows you'd like me to review. That's it for now. See you later.